What is going on, everybody? It's Great Scots here with this would be the fourth episode of Medieval Dynasty. It's been a year and now almost a full season since the last episode, and this is the way I'm kind of running this, is just 1 year at a time. What have I learned? There's been a lot of learning and a lot of, here, we'll get this paused. There's been a lot of learning, a lot of, which, you know, it's my not too fancy way of saying I have made a lot of mistakes in the past year. The first mistake, and it really kind of contradicts something I think I said in the third video, but the previous one of these, you know, what I learned after 1 year. The St. John's Wort, which is, we'll show it in the inventory, wort, and broadleaf plantain. I kind of dismissed these. I said, you know, broadleaf plantain is good because it's health, and when you get attacked by animals, you need it. But this is basically useless because I rarely ever get poisoned. I saw there were prices, but I couldn't imagine that people would actually pay for this stuff, and they absolutely can. And so I just started in the spring of this year. So I'm in the third year, right? Because the full second year went by between the last episode and this one, and then the spring is it's just about to turn to summer. So basically spring is done. But yeah, when I found out that, you know, people, they don't pay 5 currency each, they pay 2 currency each. At least they do for me. This stuff is everywhere. Not literally everywhere, but it is in a lot of places. I've seen it missing from some swamps and really high elevations. But otherwise, this stuff is ubiquitous. And so pick it up as you go. I highly recommend to facilitate finding that stuff. One of the other things that's happened between last year and this year, it's related, is that survival, I've maxed it out. I'm up to level 10. I was not trying to do this. I was just trying to make it through 1 year, and I've maxed it out. You can see that crafting is coming along. I'm about to hit level 5. Diplomacy, not so much. Farming, not so much, although it has gotten better. I will talk about farming because I've learned a lot about farming through a tremendous number of errors. Hunting, that seems scaled kind of right. And extraction, mostly cutting down. Actually, I believe all cutting down trees. I haven't done much mining at all. I chopped a few rocks here right before this episode started, but it's almost all wood cutting. Anyways, what can help you find those plants? I believe it is in survival. There is, I think it's survival sense. Okay, I was wrong. So it's not survival sense. I guess you can always see the St. John's Wort and the other. I thought this enabled it, but it looks like it doesn't. So look for that stuff and grab it, and, you know, if you need it, use it. But for the most part, it's basically money that you're going to be able to get when you sell it to townspeople. That has changed many things. I do want to briefly talk about the bugs, and if you've played the game, you probably know. I don't really know. I know that other people are making videos, because since I started posting them, I've started seeing in my feed people are doing Medieval Dynasty. That's cool. It's a game that's definitely worth doing. But right now the taxes on it are broken. So, and broken in a good way for the player, but it kind of removes a lot of the challenge. I mean, other things have happened. You can see that there are now 4 inhabitants. I had no inhabitants last year. But my taxes, well, at one point they were supposed to be 600 and something. But the previous year they were 375. I exited the game, and then things changed, and I was like, alright, I can go back in real quick, which is kind of why I'm here now. And when I entered back into the game, there were no taxes due. I got a quest. Originally this went from winter to spring, beginning of the third year, and taxes were going to be due by the end of the spring, and it was 600, and I was like, oh crap, because I only had 72 currency, and I didn't know about the St. John's wort or anything, or the health herb. And so I was like, I have no idea how I'm going to do it. I think I'm just going to start taking on debt, and it's probably going to be, with interest, just a kind of spiral until I get ejected from this area. But then when I loaded back in, the quest was gone. My taxes were no longer due, and the taxes it thinks that I owe are about half of what they were. So that challenge of paying taxes has been removed. But I think that's balanced by the fact that I didn't know if you just plucked St. John's wort, and I should really learn the name of this. I have so much of it. Broadleaf plantain. If I knew that those were good sellers, during the downtimes, I would just be plucking these things, getting ready to sell them in town. And honestly, I made about probably $17.50 gold just this spring, just from selling those two herbs. That should give you some sense if you're going to commit to it. And it was probably like a day and a half out of the 3-day season. But honestly, most of it was just between travel. I would just get on that left alt key, and if I saw a patch coming up, I would just go in there, pick up a few, and keep moving on. But that's something that is so critically important, and it kind of makes the game really easy. You can see that I haven't aged, which is also this bug when loading in. I started the game when I was 18. I'm now in my 3rd year, so I would think that I would then be 20, or approaching 20. But it's early access. It's a very early build. So that's the kind of biggest takeaway, is grab those things when you're on the move. You don't have to make special trips out to do it. And then sell it to the people in town, and that's going to raise the money early on. I thought the way to go was to grab sticks and rock and make, basically the knives were the most efficient if you had to carry them long distance. Not by any means. These are far lighter, absolutely free. I assume that they regrow each year. We'll wait and see, but I assume that's true. So that was one area of lesson learned. The other area of lesson learned really revolves around farming. And even here, I've kind of done it wrong, or not done it as well as I could. But I've learned, like I said, I've learned a lot. Maybe this field back here is a decent example. You can see the sticks outlining this field. It's not all plowed up. It's not a mistake. The reason I did that is because the first time you set a field and you get in there with, I have the stone hoe, and you rake it up, it's just ready. It's got the nutrients. You don't have to buy manure or acquire it. You can just go with whatever's in there. So if you plow the field up, and even if you don't throw seeds down, like if I plowed this up and I just didn't put any seeds in, or if I did put seeds in, either way, if I used it or I didn't, later on it would require manure, which is 10 currency for each one of these field squares. So that's a field square, that's a field square, that's a field square. You'll see what they are in game, but it would be a little square about here, here, and here. Those would all be squares. It gets expensive. So don't do that, particularly early on when you don't have the cash. You're not going to be able, you don't want to have to spend it on manure. I'll talk briefly about something you might want to spend it on, but I just got it, so I'm not sure it's worth it. But that was a pretty big lesson learned. You can set the field, and I thought, maybe I should set the field small. Actually, in retrospect, just set it big, and only plow the parts that you're going to use. Now, after stuff grows here, so we got this planted, this planted. What I kind of did is that these 3 fields right here, they're kind of close. That's all stuff that I believe is coming due in the summer. So this is the spring, and I believe that's cabbage. Yeah, it's not going to tell me in here, but I believe it's, well, actually, it'll tell us when we look over it. Cabbage and onion have a 1-season, there we go, maturation. And I believe with cabbage, you can plant it in 2 different seasons. By themselves, they're not very impressive. In terms of the nutrients per weight, they do have another, cabbage in particular. I'm starting to think cabbage and just the raw meat, when you get them together in, actually you can just see what it turns out to be. Raw meat and cabbage, I believe, create, yeah, it tells you right here, the potage, one of each will get you something that gives you 30 nutrition for a ½ kilogram. I mean, that is, I mean, it also sells well, but that is tremendous bang for the buck. I have the tavern over there. It's kind of the outdoor pavilion looking thing. And so because cabbage matures very quickly, because meat is pretty ubiquitous when you're hunting, I think the ability to craft that potage is good. Now over here, let me see if I, carrot, beetroot. This is stuff that I believe is coming up in the fall, beetroot and carrot. And I also started stuff that's supposed to come up in the fall, not the onion, that was just excess, but wheat. Now I didn't have a sieve, and so I only planted, I think, 1 of these before, like 1 field square, so very, very little of wheat, but I didn't have a sieve to harvest it, and so it kind of just got wasted. Now I don't even have a sieve yet, but I do have I have a pickaxe, and I have reports of where there's an iron mine. And I do have built, I don't know if I'm going to run through all of these, but one of the many buildings I have built this past year, we had, I think, 4 or 8 last year, we're up to 12 out of 12 now, is the smithy. And the smithy is a lot like, it's a lot like the basic workshop, except you have this anvil, as you can see, for crafting. It does some pretty interesting things. The hammer, or the hammer's fine. The pickaxe is something you have to pay for. It's about 150, but I bought this one, and I then unlocked the ability to buy more. And it didn't make sense to me to just buy the pickaxe without a pickaxe to get iron, because there's no way then to get iron, and so I'd have to buy another one. After that, I purchased the scythe, or the scythe. And I'm assuming that this pickaxe I bought is going to get me there. So that's actually really, I think, important. The scythe for the wheat and the pickaxe for additional iron. Where do you go? I didn't see an offer for a pickaxe from the blacksmith in Barrow, I don't know how to. Lesnica is a little settlement that has it going on. They built up onto a hill. They got woods surrounding them, and they have a quality blacksmith and a quality. I'll say she's a weaponsmith, but she has some advanced, I think, recursive bow, crossbow. I wish there was a way. Maybe there isn't. I just haven't found it. To, let's see, be reminded of what is in each town. Because I've gone to all these. There was a couple, I don't think I went to Lesnica or Jezerka after the end of year 1. But I did get there in year 2, and I went back at the beginning of year 3 here to Lesnica. I thought I could get it in Barrow. I didn't see it at the blacksmith. Rolnica, I couldn't find a blacksmith there. Denica didn't have it, and then Lesnica was the one that did have it. Maybe Jezreka and or Hornica have it too. I don't know. But that's definitely a place that's got their stuff together. So that might be something you want to check out. It was expensive. I think the I don't remember. I think the pickaxe was $450, and if I wanted to buy the scythe, it would have been $600. So quite pricey, but again, once you start farming all of the herbs, it's not too bad. Uh, Development. So one of the other major changes that took place in the last month plus one season is, yeah, I got people here, and I mean, there's some things to note. This seems to be working. There are basically two resources you need to keep the people happy enough that they don't leave, which is wood. So this shows you how much you got. And then this is food. The food buildup has been tremendous because I started combining the cabbage and the raw meat to make that potage, and just the nutritional value in that. This was 700 a few days ago, and I've largely been out of town. I just came in with the cabbage and the meat, and I just turn it all in that potage. I shove it then into the kind of feed bin, and they look good to go. The wood, I don't know if this is right. I do have, you can see Mildreda, she's pretty talented, so you can see that each one of these characters has a skill kind of number that corresponds to one of the actual skills that you have. So originally it was her and Pepin? I don't know. And Pepin is kind of a loser. And so there wasn't much that he was good at, but he was okay at hunting. So he's out hunting, he's bringing in pretty good supply of meat, mixed with the cabbage that we have, the potage. That's a well-fed village. But Mildreda has a lot of talent, actually, as does Agnes, and more of a mixed case, but a real talent for farming. I'll call him Lesota. I don't know what his name, I don't know how he pronounces it, but anyways, Mildreda's been hacking away. I think if you go into the wood containers and you take the logs and then you manually churn it into firewood, I think that jacks the wood up. I've done it a little bit. I didn't spend too much time on it, and it seemed to have a significant increase. And so if you just happen to stop by the settlement, I'd recommend, and there are logs that I've placed and logs that she placed, I'd recommend chopping them up into firewood. So I tried to put people where they had abilities or where I needed them. Let's see here. Agnes, now, something else. With Agnes and Lesota, and maybe this is true of all characters, there is a lag between when they say they'll join you. Now, you have to have the housing to accommodate them. And basically, I think I'm in the simple small house. In the small houses, they'll do 2 adults. And even though the simple house seats or houses 4, they'll go 2 per house, but not more. So you got to have the house, and then you got to have the approval 70 or higher, and they have to be one of the characters who's willing to leave. And they usually show up as the people, so you can see this top bar up here right underneath the green spring thing that's showing me all the directions. Like the person symbol has to show up, and then they're one that you can recruit. The better the house, I think the happier they are. So Mildreda and Pepin, I gave them better walls and roof, but otherwise they're exactly the same as Agnes and Lesota. And Mildreda was really not happy. Her mood went down to like 35% because I, quote, hadn't finished her house, which was technically true, but it was like 75% done. And yeah, there was no wood, so she was freezing. But, you know, it was fall, it wasn't winter, so she wasn't actually freezing. But what I was telling you before is that it appears the characters take time to move from their settlement to your settlement. And in the case of Agnes, who was down here from Hornica, and I don't remember where Lesota was from. I don't think it was Barrow, but actually it might have been. I thought it was from either Branica or Baranica, which are too similarly named for me. But you know, maybe he was from Barrow, because he was kind of stuck here, like his person icon. And when you go to management, if you do this and you click on them, it shows you can see the person on the map here. It's kind of weird. It doesn't look quite right, but they'll show you where they are. Agnes, if you see where my cursor is, she was down here for the whole fall, or maybe the whole winter, whatever it was. And Lesota, he was right about where my cursor is now, and not moving. In the spring, I went over to Lesota for other reasons. I was actually trying to hunt. I'm kind of stuck here. I used to see Wisson all the time, but ever since I needed one more, I can't find them anywhere. So I was going over there to hunt, and he happened to be walking by. And once he saw me, he walked he walked through the quasi river here, and he also gave me a quest to chop down some trees, which was fine. And Agnes, I had to meet up with her and basically follow her while I was picking up St. John's wort, and then she finally made it to the settlement. But I think if I hadn't gone down there, she'd probably still be standing down here not doing a thing. So if you're playing and you're like, hey, what's going on here? Like, is this game broke? I don't know. It does feel kind of broke. It does feel like one of the bugs. Other notes on how to manage your settlement. I would say I've one of the many ways I erred in the last year was that I built too quickly. And my recommendation, my learning lesson, would be to build first the places that gather the resources that you'll use, basically the green stuff and the red one here, and then the stuff you see in purple, maybe accepting the tavern. And actually the workshop is fine because you pretty much only need stick and stone to make that work. But the smithy and the sewing, the smithy basically needs iron to work, and I don't have it. Sewing needs, what the heck is it called? Linen thread, which is derived from flax. Actually, I think it's flax stalk. I haven't gotten there yet. It's very expensive to buy. There is the ability to make it. I have to kind of get the farming right to get a pipeline of flax and flax seed, and then you husk it in the barn, and then I think you can use what you derive from that in sewing, and it's pretty good. There's a lot to sew, but I would recommend not doing that first. I would look at the woodshed. I would look at the hunting lodge. Honestly, the barn at this point, I don't think it's done anything. Unless you're ready to grind, I'll say, grain or oats or flax. The barn, it's premature for. The workshop is okay. The tavern, to get that potage, and there are other concoctions that are, approximately as good, but cabbage and raw meat are kind of so worthless on their own. To me, the home run when they get mixed together, that might be worth the tavern. The smithy is okay if you've purchased the pickaxe and you've located an iron deposit. I've done some YouTube sleuthing, and right where my cursor is, it's been reported that there are iron deposits down here in these high elevations. That's one of the things I was gonna do and then do this video, but I just said the heck with it. I gotta move on. So I'll let you know when I get through year 3 if that worked out. But if you can get a steady stream of iron, you can build the smithy, you can buy the pickaxe, and then you can get to work. Only once you have a good supply of food, either from farming or from hunting, and you got the rock, the stick, and hopefully the iron, then I think it makes sense to do some of these later ones. The reason why it's a bad idea is because of how the tax rate works. You get taxed on the building whether anybody works there. And I don't know why. I'm not exactly sure what the workers do in food storage and resource storage. I know that the buildings are taxed. The houses are as well. Okay, fine. But for me, the taxing doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. No, it does. I mean, it does make sense. But the way that it works, it incentivizes you to only build those things you need. So don't build things if you don't have the. I know it's kind of not the way we use the word, but if you don't have the precursor materials to make those upper level buildings work, don't go for them. Anything else? How to preserve your weapons. Specifically, the throwing. I'll call them throwing sticks. They're sharpened sticks. So there's a whole bunch of the wooden spears. If there's an animal that will charge, so the animals that charge at you are bears, wolves, boars, and probably something else I'm forgetting. But when they do, if you wait until they do, and you throw it and you hit them right in the head, you can usually one shot kill them. And that saves the wear and tear on your wooden spears. Remember, each one of those is a log. And so, on average, 3 wooden spears is a tree, and there are a lot of other uses for that tree. So keep that in mind. But that was something that I found frequently. If I could hit them right in the head as they charged, they'd go down right away. I think I said this, but maybe it's worth saying one more time. If you're going to plant wheat, and this may apply to other, I don't know if this applies to flax, and I think it was oats. I don't know if it applies, but you definitely do need the scythe. I did say this to harvest wheat. So if you don't think you're going to have a scythe, then don't plant it, because it's just going to get wasted. You can see when you click on something, it'll tell you in the description it can be sown in the autumn and harvested in the spring, which means you can only plant it in the autumn and harvest it in the spring. It's not really just for your information. It is for your information, but it's also letting you know the limits of what you can do. I tried to, I don't think I have one with me. I'm not going to spend time in this video getting it. But if you get your wooden hammer out, which is what you need for construction, there's an option when you get that hammer out. Pretend this was a hammer, not a pickaxe. And there's going to be an option, I think when you right click maybe, and one of the options is going to be to repair. You can click it, and the building, like this wall, would show up some shade of probably lime green, and that's about as far as it goes. To me, I could hit the wall, and it would degrade my hammer, but it wouldn't allow me to repair the house. It was also not pulling resources from me, and so I think the repair mechanic, I did not see a skill. I was looking, I thought, well, maybe I have to, maybe I'm missing something in here, and I need to unlock it. And I'm looking in, but I still don't see it. Survival, gathering, and fishing, crafting, blacks. So, I mean, these are... I already have level 1 handyman. I had that before I tried this. It did not enable me to repair it. And the rest of these just seem like they're about time. And so I don't know if I'm missing something there, but I don't think you can repair things yet. My final recommendation, born out from more experience than I care to remember, is save often. The game will save at the beginning of every season, but it's taken about probably a dozen hours between the last video and this one, because I mean, that's true even if you don't save, but it takes about 10 hours or so if you're going to play through every day and just sleep at the end of the season. That could be how long it takes you. But if you don't save, like a day and a half goes by and you were picking a bunch of junk, or you were felling trees, you did all that work, and I had the CPU froze. It's the only time it's happened playing this game. It was a little bit of a surprise. But if something like that happens, and you didn't save, you're messed up. And remember also, I can't remember if I said this in the previous video. So, before you go up to someone that has the, you see that little exclamation point there? Well, it'll get closer as you get closer to the person with it. That means that there's a mission. And you don't know in advance, I don't think you know in advance, what it's going to be. If it was a story quest, it can go any season. Like, this has been stuck on wait for further events for almost a year. Alwyn's story. I beat him in an archery contest. I still haven't got my money from him. I don't know if I'm going to. I got to go talk to him. Those will go through any season, as will the chapter, I'll say, quests. But the side quests, those lock you out after that season is over. I really hope the devs fix this. I'm fine with there being a time limit, maybe 3 days in game, if that's what they're going for. But it's so stupid if you take up a quest that you cannot complete because you don't have the money, maybe you need a pickaxe, or you need to be able to sew something and you can't do it, and you have like 1 day to complete it. So my recommendation is, it's hard to do, but once you screw up a few times, you'll remember to save it before you take on any of those quests and see if it's something that you can do. Otherwise, you might end up failing the quest, or if you really want it, you're going to have to go way back in time to get it. So that'll be my last thought for here. I'm enjoying the game. Certainly learned a lot the hard way, but that is what it is. And yeah, I'll be back here with what I learned in year 3 once it's all completed. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope it helps you.